A warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of the JADS Expert Talks. And the subject of this evening is Human-Centric AI. And that shouldn't come as a surprise, because this is a topic that over the past years has gained a lot of attention, and to a certain extent, it is governing all types of decisions worldwide as we are sitting here at this table. But before we are going to introduce our guest and elaborate on the topic in more detail, I would like to go with you over the conditions for the Zoom. I'm sure that you have been living with these conditions over the past 2 years almost. And let's have a look at the slides. So this slide more or less is familiar, I hope. So we would like, because this is being recorded, that you turn off your cameras at home. If you are going to have some interaction with us, then we kindly ask you to switch on the camera if you agree to do so. The same holds for the microphone, so please put them on mute so that we have only the sound of this conversation during the recording. And as I already alluded to, the session is being recorded, and we will interact with you. We have several ways of doing so. The first and most simple way is that you can put your questions and comments in the chat. I will be reading the chat, and if something happens in the chat that is sufficiently interesting to raise it to the level of the session, we will switch to the online part of it. And we will also have some moments where we can take questions from you directly. And then we also have you, or will be asking you to participate in the call. Well, and that's about it. So without further ado, we could have a look at the program. As I already mentioned, we have a number of guests around the table, and I will introduce them to you one by one. We will connect to the Ikai labs. We will connect to a number of developments, both at the level of JADS in terms of small activities, but also with some bigger activities that we develop jointly with the Ikai labs. And that is an activity with the multinational KPN, and an activity that goes way abroad into the Caribbean. So that brings me, ladies and gentlemen, to the point to, let's say, elaborate a little bit on the choice of the topic. And the topic is, as I already mentioned, very important, because, you know, in Europe, we would like to take this human-centric approach as the guiding principle of all the activities in this field that we jointly work on. And that is done a little bit as opposed to the state-centric approach in China, and what some people call the imperialistic approach, so the business-only approach of the United States. And Europe, by means of the European Commission, has embraced this direction as the way that Europe should go about in this domain. And we like that, because it is in the heart of the culture of the citizens of Europe. Across the entire continent, we discover in our conversations with all kinds of persons that work in this domain from other countries all over Europe. And it is also compelling, because to bring in the end user aspect of the user-centric element is a kind of question that is very easily posed, but rather hard to live by and to come up with solutions that make sense. And that is the topic of today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce one of the first table guests, Daan Koopman. And Daan, ladies and gentlemen, works with JADS for quite some time in the domain of our data center, we could call it. But before we look at the content of what you would like to share with us, Daan, we also share something in common in the past. So we both studied in Groningen.
Yes.
But there is a slight difference. So I have studied mathematics, and I have been following that path for 40 years now. But you started in the human field, as we call it, the social sciences and humanities, and then you made the switch to data.
Yes.
Could you say a few words on why you made this switch and what was the life-changing event?
Well, I wouldn't say life-changing, but it was an event, I suppose. So first, thank you so much for having me here. I think it's really nice to have the opportunity to talk about responsible AI and human-centric AI. But to answer your question, I actually went to Groningen to, hone my quantitative skills. I was doing human geography and planning in Utrecht before, and during that, master's degree, I found out I really liked the quantitative elements. Of course, human geography is also about qualitative studies, but I prefer the quantitative part. So I figured, so what's also something that has to do with the built environment, but is more quantitative? Well, I figured out maybe I should go and do real estate studies. So I went to Groningen in an effort to, follow these courses that were a bit more about the quantitative side of it.
What is the connection between real estate and Groningen?
Well, that's a good question. You should ask the people at the real estate masters there. But I went there, and I found.
All right.
This is interesting, I think, that the real estate people, they're really commercially minded, right? So I wouldn't say they're primarily, profit driven, but it's a large chunk of what they do. So there I found out that for me, it's not just about the quantification, it's also about what you do with it.
Yes, and well, you mentioned the word quantitative a lot of times. But what does that mean from your perspective? Is that what we call the blue nature, so tables and figures and data, or maybe even some statistics?
Yes.
Or did it go beyond that?
Well, at that stage, I would say if you look at the real estate masters, that's also about doing investment analysis, return on investment, that sort of thing. But I think my interest was way beyond that. I was interested more in statistics. So actually, after my stint in Groningen, I figured out, okay, I want to do something, with statistics, but I don't really want to do this in a commercial direction. So for me, that was the moment I found out, okay, I want to do something that, is a bit more, geared towards what we now call the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes.
So this is why I decided to go and do a PhD in the UK, working on something called computational sociology.
Yeah. And what may be also nice is to mention that in the 60s of the past century, when statistics grew out of mathematics as a mature field, there has been a discussion how to name it. And at that point in time, data science was one of the notions that they discarded to denote the entire field. And now, yes, that's one of the anecdotes of this evening, and it is even true. So that is a natural connection also between you becoming interested in the quantitative metrics from statistics to data science. And what will be your future in this field, Dan?
Well, I think I'm going to focus primarily on what we call responsible artificial intelligence for now. So I would say I'm a sociologist at heart. So I will always try and look at the intersection between algorithms and behavior. And you can do it in both directions. So you can use algorithms to try and model human behavior, as economists do, but you can also try and study how people use quantitative methods, statistics, machine learning. And I think that intersection, that's something.
That's great. That's the future. We know, Dan, that you have prepared a small presentation for us to go into more detail and also build to the Ikai labs. Yeah. And so could I kindly ask you to share your presentation with us?
Absolutely.
Here you go.
Thank you so much. So I figured out I should start with a slide that, kind of captures some of the things we will be talking about today. So I figured I'd start with this one. So we have Garry Kasparov on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, we see Lisa Dahl. And I picked this slide because I think it illustrates quite nicely why AI is always human-centric, right? You can see here, well, I'd like to think this is the moment where both gentlemen realized they were, best by a computer. For Kasparov, he lost at his favorite game, which was chess. And for Lisa Dahl, it was Go. And the interesting thing here is that, Go for a long time, it was considered a game that, no computer would ever beat. People said, computer scientists said, well, okay, we can do chess, but Go is way more complicated. We will never get there. But it did happen in the end. Yeah. And you can see here, they were flabbergasted by the results. Yeah. And I think this is, just a really interesting moment in time. So what this has sparked, and many other pivotal moments have sparked, like a widespread enthusiasm surrounding artificial intelligence. And I think all the people here today share an enthusiasm about the potential of this technique, right? I think I can say that. So, and I'm sure if you go online and you search for artificial intelligence, you will come across, or you will have seen films of, this Atlas robot by Boston Dynamics that can do really nice tricks. Which is, I think helps, spark the enthusiasm that we all feel surrounding this technique. And you have people saying, is artificial intelligence eating the world? I'm not sure, but it will definitely have an impact. So there's also a flip side to this. We have, widespread hype around this technique. There's also, over the last few years, and we discussed this, been some issues with the implementation of these technologies. So here you can see an excerpt and 2 pictures from a very important piece published by ProPublica on the Compass algorithm that was shown to be, racist towards, blacks, and was actually advantaging white people, because it was saying, okay, these people have a lower risk of actually committing crime again.
Yeah.
So this really shows that the application of AI and algorithms, you really need to think about how you do it. You need to do it responsibly. I think this, is just one example of what can go wrong. I don't think we should, throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to say, because there's also a lot of, interesting techniques being fueled with artificial intelligence, like warehousing and, all sorts of techniques that we should definitely develop further. But we should keep in mind how these technologies impact people as well. So, and what I'd like to do, in this short introduction, because I only have a couple of minutes, I think it's also, important to share our JADS perspective. And for this, of course, it's going to be my interpretation of that perspective, and I talk with colleagues. So, I hope it's representative, so to say, but you never know, right? So I think our slogan, what we do is we do cool stuff that matters with data. And I think when I look, to my colleagues, I think most of them are actually motivated, not we're working with data per se, but actually motivated working with data towards some goal. And I think that really connects us. And that's, for me, what for large part the responsible side of responsible artificial intelligence, human-centric AI, is all about. So, of course, when discussing, this topic with colleagues across the social sciences, but also more technical sciences, there's a lot of subject that can be brought up in regards to responsible artificial intelligence. And, by no means, I think we can give an exhaustive overview of what this actually means. But I think, in making the connection with the Ikai labs that we will discuss today, we'll see some of these elements back in actual practice of what we do. But what I'd like to stress here is that, what we'd like to do at JADS, and this is why I included this slide, we want to try and develop these responsible AI techniques in collaboration with partners, right? We step outside of the ivory tower a little bit to try and see how you can actually make this work in practice. And I think we do this by improving the data literacy with the SME data lab that we have, by helping organizations improve their data maturity, and not just the larger organizations, but also the smaller ones.
Yes.
And I think that, helps towards democratizing, the access to the techniques that we're all developing. And of course, there's a lot of other subjects that we can discuss today. But when I also wanted to point out is, responsible AI, it starts also with, profound understanding of how these techniques work. But that's only one element. You also have to consider the wider implications of this technology. So what I'm hoping to do today is to share with you a couple of, examples through the Ikai labs of what this can mean and how we are trying to come to terms with, developing these techniques in a way that's responsible and human-centric.
Yes, yeah, very well put. So maybe this is a nice moment in time where we could switch to Esther Smith, who is the general manager of the Ikai labs. And well, as Daan was already alluding to, there is this vision to put humans in the center of all these data science and AI developments, but the implementation is another part. And the Netherlands have developed quite an interesting novel instrument that we refer to as the Ikai Labs. It's a network of smaller activities, and Esther Smith is heading that network into the right direction. So, Esther, welcome to our our call, our session. Could you introduce yourself to this? So what is a manager, a general manager of Ikai Labs doing?
Hi, Emil, thank you, and thanks for this opportunity. So I am responsible for the business operations, so to say, of Ikai Innovation Center for Artificial Intelligence. I'm not a technical expert at all, actually. My background is in business administration and in organizational sciences. But I've always been working in building communities based on content, doing the account management. And after working for a couple of years also in industry, building different communities on sea level, I got an opportunity to move towards the University of Amsterdam, supporting researchers in the Amsterdam region.
Esther, if I may interrupt you for a moment. So what did this job that you now have, what does this job turn into the best job in the Netherlands? So why does it make you tick?
Well, I really like working with researchers. I never expected myself actually working in this type of environment, but coincidentally moved into this direction. And I think it's extremely interesting to work with all those individuals together that have the aim to really think about latest developments, how can we improve things, and are experts in their field, but also really made the decision to stay in this world and want to build those new type of innovations. And also then, especially the network where I'm in, all those experts also work a lot with industry, which makes it an interesting dynamic, and especially the dynamic of working as well as in industry, but also connecting it to society, which can be in multiple ways.
That's an important point, Esther. If we can elaborate on that slightly more in detail, because there is this tension always between the pure scientific part on the one hand, and let's say the freedom of scientific research, and of course the needs that come from the companies, because they would like to have a certain achievement within a certain amount of time. How do you deal with this tension within the Ecal Network?
So it's always being clear about expectations. What I always say, researchers are no consultants, so don't expect them to change or support you in your internal process problems for the short term. But by collaborating with research, you have the opportunity to really expand and build your own development agenda as well, because in my opinion, also organizations should focus on the combination of short-term developments and innovation, but also the long-term perspective to be able to also co-op with especially within the AI field, in the international competition that's going on, and to be able to stay ahead compared to your competitors. You see that there is more and more a need also to collaborate with research, because also the problems become much more complex. And that is also why it's interesting, I think, for the researchers. But I think Dan might be even better to explain why he does this as well as also what he did, because the problems that industry have, like the partners you have at your table also later this evening, they see the challenges which can be brought also back to research again. So the dynamics are complex, but by having an open conversation and also really being open on what can be expected, that is very important to do that from the start.
Yes. So Esther, maybe as a question, last question to, let's say, wind up a little. What is the development of the Ikai network for the forthcoming year? So what would you like to achieve together with Maarten de Rijke, who is the, let's say, the scientific lead of the Ecal Network, with whom you are working together quite intensely. So what are the two of you trying to achieve in the forthcoming year?
Yeah, so with the Ikai network, our main mission is to develop talent and new knowledge for the Dutch ecosystem. It's of course very broad, but what we like to achieve with all the developments that are going on, and also the talent that we train, and trying to make sure that it also comes into our society, so that it benefits more also the partners there, but also PhDs might end up getting opportunities within the field. And we're at the moment working on expanding the network. So we have currently 28 Ikai labs around the country. We're working on a new funding proposal. Within 1.5 years, we will probably hopefully have 70 more of those labs. And with that, we also want to build a more stronger connection also with the more SMEs, for example, startups. So expanding the activities and really showing and connecting the Netherlands as a whole. So not just the individual labs, but really build a more stronger ecosystem and also connect this ecosystem to other activities that are going on. So for example, the ELSA labs that are there, by bridging the two and also interacting together and connecting those elements within the whole ecosystem by building this human-centered AI, which is very important for the Netherlands and Europe.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. We wish you all the best of luck, because your success is also partly ours. So we have a way and a path to walk along. We will be discussing later, indeed, as you already mentioned, 2 examples of Ikai labs where we, from within JADS, collaborate with industry and with another part in the world. So thank you, Esther, for your time and for sharing your insights with us. I hope that you have the time to stay with us this evening. And for the time being, we now would like to switch to our guest here around the table.
Yeah, thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the next part. And there are already 2 gentlemen that are could no longer wait to join us. And I'm very happy that they are with us. The first person is Gianluigi Bardelloni, and the second person is Rigo Celessa. And let's start by introducing you to the audience, gentlemen. So maybe we could start with you, Gianluigi. Well, your name sounds a little bit Italian. That
it is.
May not
come.
Yeah, I expected to think like that. What did bring you, maybe the train or the plane, but aside to that, what did bring you from Italy to the Netherlands and then especially here Den Bosch?
Yeah, it's a long story, almost 20 years ago. So I started as a physicist, my education. And back then I got a postdoc position in Nickel, even without having a PhD, because I had some specific knowledge back then. And then a lot of position, I changed it from university research to software industries and big industries. And still I get the homesick about science. And data science was the natural escape point.
Yes, yeah.
Because wasn't it combining the software knowledge that I built up with the research methodology that I developed. And then Bosch, apart from Bosch Ball and then the Euronymous Bosch Museum, is for JADS, the Ecal Lab that we have founded.
Yes.
Together with
because you are employed within KPN, and KPN is one of the big IT companies in the Netherlands, and Dutch rooted, of course. So that is where you can combine the, let's say, innovation drive from a scientific perspective with the relevance for society at the other hand.
Yeah, precisely. I'm lead intent recognition and automation at KPN, the CRM analytics department.
Yes.
and also responsible for the relationship joint venture with universities.
Yeah, and that's where we come in.
Precisely.
Great, great. Nice to have you here.
Thank you
Welcome.
for having me.
The second person, ladies and gentlemen, is Rigo Salesa. Rigo, you are from the Caribbean originally, but you are within the Netherlands already for quite some time. Could you share some of your professional story with us, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me tonight. I came in Netherlands after my high school, and after my study technology management, I started in the consultancy world, and I started implementing ERP system, and I'm recognizing a lot of development in process improvements, and working in the area of maintenance, implementing remote service solutions. And after that, I moved to a bigger multinational, starting helping customers implement cloud solutions. And from there, I had the opportunity to start for myself and work in the area of data also, helping customers to analyze the data, using the data to identify problems in the processes, and then helping organizations to transform, doing process optimization.
But that means that you are a genuine data scientist, dealing with both the hard and the soft side of the digital transformation that is going on outside.
Yes, I'm not a data scientist myself, but I am the bridge between the business and data scientist, and I can understand the logic of development of algorithms and translate that in a managerial language and understandable solutions for the business.
Great, that's a very nice job you have, Rigo, I assume. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the two gentlemen are here this night to tell about their special developments and encounters in two Ikai labs, respectively. And we are going now to familiarize you with the content of those two Ikai labs. And Jean-Louis, could I ask you to present your Ikai lab activities and well,
sure,
share it with us. Please go ahead.
Yes, thanks. Indeed, KPN and JADS, we founded together in April 2020 the Ecal Lab for Responsible AI. We call it LARA because we are lazy, as you know. And the main mission of this Ecal Lab is basically develop transparent, privacy-aware, and personalized artificial intelligence solution for several businesses. And we do this on three main pillars. Basically, the pillars of compliance, fairness, and transparency. Those are also the human-centric aspect, which are very important for us. And on those three pillars, indeed, we try to develop not only our application for internal use at KPN, but also for external customer. And namely, we are focusing on streaming data platform, which is basically the most recent way where you have a lot of data coming in and you have to do some smart things on those and develop services that can interest. So the Ecal Lab is indeed, as you see, a small organigram there. It's really a joint venture between JADS and us. So we have an equal partnership here. We select together PhD students that are doing research on those fields, and we try to have application of those research also in our fields. And indeed, PhD students are the most important part of our lab, and I'll just very quickly go through them. We have Aviva and Georgios. They were the first two that we hired. Aviva even before we founded JADS, because our collaboration with JADS started in 2018, actually. And both are focusing on the transparency aspect. Aviva from a social, legal, ethical perspective. Georgios more from a technical perspective. So whereas Aviva, which is now almost done with her PhD, so her dissertation named Care to Explain, will provide principles on where and how to provide explanation in those AI-based systems, because there are several aspects that are just not purely technical. It's indeed has to do with who has to get an explanation in what context. Georgios is more technical, so really algorithm that provides explanation why a model has proven a certain response, even in more obscure fields like deep learning, where you don't precisely have a specific hint on why the model says something specifically. And then we have last year Radislav and Daniel started from with us. So you see a lot of international people in this lab. And let's say they are focused more on the personalization part. Radislav more from a language perspective. So we have, of course, in our company, a lot to do with our customer services, their contact. And is developing methods to somehow recognize different personas in our customer interaction, so that we somehow can teach automated system to go better with those kind of personas. And Daniel is more focused on, let's say, interaction part, the behavior. So doing some testing how a specific offer, what kind of outcome it can have given the specific characteristics of a customer. So he's developing, for example, very nice contextual multi-R bandit kind of things, where you try different strategies and you choose the strategies depending on the profile of the customer. And then we have Nemanja, and Nemanja is on the compliancy pillar, and basically privacy preserving techniques. So basically, how can we ensure that once, for example, we process a lot of transcription of our customer, how we sure that we can remove sensitive part, like email address, bank account. Those things are not relevant for the business process. And there's also a mandatory requirements from our privacy officer saying, look, if you want to analyze, let other people look at those things. There shouldn't be any information to recollect, point to a specific customer, but even a specific employee on our side. So our privacy is very important from that sense. And the last one, you see a question mark, because that's the last position at PhD in JADS that we want to cover. And is indeed what I was mentioning about the streaming platform system. We are now in the final selection process with one candidate, so maybe let's say next time there will be a nice picture there as well for you to see. And this is important because it is not only technical, it's basically how we can create marketplaces on a streaming platform. So which are the players, what kind of services you can offer based on data, is there a market for those data? So it's not only technical, but also social science. And finding such a person is very hard. So we're already doing the second round, because the first round we didn't find anyone suitable. And now looks like we're gonna succeed. So I'm very curious to start. And that's basically it for
Thank you for this very interesting view on the entire program, and also with so many PhDs and with a coherent set of activities. Dan, if I may turn to you, so where does JADS come into this story?
Well, I think what I think is really interesting, Gianluigi, is that you can actually see that you've chosen the topics of these PhD positions very carefully. So you have some people from the social sciences working on data and ethics problems, but also hardcore technical problems. And I think this really goes to show that your effort towards moving to beyond just a pure technical, but also trying to see the potential impact of these technologies on the people that will be working with them, but also on you as a company. So I think the JADS perspective here comes in from doing not only the technical parts, but also trying to move beyond that, to try and see how the social technical system actually works. So it's
the interdisciplinary part that we often. And is your feeling, or what is your feeling about, let's say, the skills level and the scientific level that we have developed within JADS with respect to these challenges? So do we have a lot to offer?
I would say
to
so.
Gianluigi?
Well, I think this is a question I would pose to Gianluigi.
Yes, we
but-
will hear the reactions from Gianluigi in due time,
Yeah.
but maybe you should
But, yeah.
give it a go.
So, I've spoken with Aviva in the past, and I've known
Yes.
from her, experiences that she learned a lot from working with KPN. And I think if you look at how social scientists are normally trained, we're trained to shy away from businesses because, we should, remain in our ivory tower and study from there to remain critical. And I think
Yes.
what's the interesting thing here is that we actually engaged with one another to move beyond the critical phase, but try and move towards being more responsible. So if you look at the level or the type of social scientist, which is of course my background, that we are training through this collaboration, I think it's a different breed of social scientists.
Yes.
Open to engaging with
Yeah.
partners. Yeah.
Would you agree with the statement from Dan?
I do agree, but I also, let's say, have a kind of realistic approach, and I can recognize it's a challenge sometimes.
Yes.
Indeed. Conjugate both aspects. So, and that's what part of my work is. How can I ensure that this kind of research somehow we can apply in our social, let's say, life.
And is there an asking from your side with respect to us as JADS? So can we do better at certain elements or aspects?
I think is putting the stress on the collaboration. So what I say because it took some years to hire all those 6 people. And I see that when I started to involve the PhD from the beginning, right away, full immersion in our activity, basically day-to-day come to our office, then I saw indeed an improvement. That basically they get aware of what it's like, what are the problems we are carrying, and also what kind of need we have in terms of guidelines.
Yes.
And from a social scientist, I see that sometimes there is kind of difficult in there because they say, I'm not supposed to provide you checklists or stuff. I'm here for the big principle. So these things to work together is something that we have to work on. It makes it interesting, challenging, but it's not for granted. So it's something you have to, like a small plant, you have to put water to.
Yeah, some fertilizer. Well, we will do our best. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe we should take the opportunity now to move to the second example of an Ikai lab. And well, we have a presentation also here. Rigo, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I will present the innovation lab we are building up in Curacao. The intention for the innovation lab is also to create attention for new innovations in the Caribbean area and bring knowledge from Netherlands to the Dutch Antillean part of the Netherlands. And together with JADS, we are doing great work to prepare for this lab that will start over a year and a half. So, like Esther already mentioned, so we are one of the 17 labs chosen for the next
for this round. Yes.
Yes, I will zoom in a little bit on what we are doing ourselves, and then take you through the goal of the lab. This picture illustrates how technology is changing very fast the last years and what the impact of technology have on people. So as people, you'll see us during the Corona last year and a half also, we are more connected, work from home. So we are also able to find information anywhere so we can do our job and make the right decisions. And you see that this is the connection to human-centric AI. So human-centric data science is one of the innovations from the last years that can help us as people to do our work better, to understand the things that are happening around us and support us in decision making. So you see that we as humans also need to understand what are the new tools we are getting, coming available, and use it in our advantage. So we need to adopt also, but to be able to adopt, we need to understand it. And I think that's very important to have people that can translate the possibilities of technology so people can understand also what they can do with it and not see it as maybe a threat or a futuristic options. So this picture illustrates very good that adoption is the key, right? So that's a lot of things around us. So we have now everybody have a smartphone in the hand. They can do a lot of things with the smartphone. So they are connected anywhere. They can look for information, do anything what they do. So that's also available at your work, at home. So it impacted us drastically as people. So to make the connection to human-centric AI, you see here the three areas: people, technology, and process. They are connected. So as human, we need to do some tasks, or we want to do things, and we have technology available. We can support us in the tasks, and we have some regulations and procedures that we need to consider while doing the task. So to be able to be successful, we need to understand how to use the technology the best. So it also have an impact of our mindset. So to understand what we need to do, we need to focus on the culture. So we need to understand that we need to use the data to be able to make proper decision. We need to know that there is data available to support us in the decision. So we need to change our mindset to say, okay, we use always that we do something, we use the data to support us. And that's very important to go to that transition. It is difficult, sometimes take years to go to the transition. And in Netherlands, we are already doing the great steps. We're not there yet with data-driven mindset, but we are doing already good steps. And if we make the connection to Caribbean, we still need to start. A lot good activities there and initiatives, but we are also in the starting mode there to implement some data-driven activities. And the next step is the technology. How do we use the technology? And if I connect it to data science, you need to start be able to collect the data. You need to do things digitalized. You need to do things more digital way, so you have the data available. Stop working on paper, doing the things in systems, so you are able to collect the data, extract the data, and start modeling, and then compare, use knowledge on it, and then you can innovate. And then artificial intelligence is the top, the cherry on the cake. I'm saying all the time that you need to build the basis so you can be there. Yes, and then the last part is then create governance, and that I think that's one of the biggest problems a lot of times now, because we have a lot of technology, but there is no governance there. So there is no structure to organize. So we're talking about responsible AI. What are the rules we need to consider? How do we collect the data? John Luigi explained about GDPR-related things. Which data do you collect? Which data you do not collect? So you build a governance around it. And for me, it is a matter of technology adoption. So the combination, how people understand the technology and be able to adopt using the technology. And the next step is using the knowledge we have as a people to implement some automation there to help us in our daily business. So things that are recurring and practical the same, we can say, okay, we bring that logic in the system, and then we implement AI on it, and AI can start automating that for us. And the last part is then supporting us in the decision making, not let the system take the decision making fully over, but we have a supporting tool in the decision making process there. So this is basis for the transition to a human-centric AI.
Yes.
So the connection using the technology the best. So, and there I see the translation as a need. So the making sure that we can translate and understand the technology and bring it to the human, so they can do the proper steps. And let me see if I can go to that. And now I make the connection to our lab itself, because our lab is called Illustre. Illustre stands for Innovation Lab for Utility on Sustainable Technology and Renewable Energy. And here we use the approach together with JADS, where we can create the value by taking the academical research and translating that in tangible solutions for the utility companies. So it is not only doing research for doing research, but making sure that we know the needs from the companies and make sure that the innovation is in line with the needs from the organization. And here we are covering two SDGs, so Sustainable Development Goals. So we're focusing on SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, and SDG 7, affordable and clean energy. So there are those two big topics in the Caribbean area. If you can imagine, for example, in Caribbean, we have a lot of water around us, it's islands with a lot of salty water. How can we use that water and transform it in drinkable water so we can take the advantage with that? And then also we have a lot of sun. How can we use wind and solar energy to implement new renewable energies there? So that's a big topics we can use the coming 10 years. And like Esther mentioned, we start with the LTP program for the first 5 years.
Yes.
The intention is for 10 years long, bringing a lot of value for the Caribbean area, and then combined it from Organization of Netherlands and use the Caribbean as a playground or a testing field for new innovation from Europe also to test things there. So this is a great opportunity, and I like the way we work with JADS also, because we have a very good discussion about research possibilities, defining kind of topics, have a discussion with the organization in the Netherlands, learning from the past, and then bringing that value back to the possibilities for our lab. So this is a great learning, and I like every day, and I get so much energy about these things we are doing for now. Just to give an impression, what are the possible topics that we are looking for? Like you saw in the lab from KPN, they has already 6 topics, but we are in the discussions now with possible partners from utilities in the Caribbean to define also common ground and synergies areas where we can define the topic. But you see here 4 main topics we want to focus. Grid balancing is one of the big problems there. So giving an example, in Netherlands, when we have an outage of power, we can always switch to another network. So the impact is small.
Yes.
On an island, you have an isolated power grid. If something happens in the grid, you don't have options to switch. So how do you balance that grid with the solar and wind, and then be able to support those kind of things? So great in areas on to do research on that. Predictive maintenance, also important area. How do you improve maintenance, reduce cost, act proactively on activities that you see during monitoring, on advanced monitoring for machines and tools, prediction of production and consumption of water, and there we have a stable climate, and but you are able to predict things in advance and try to plan and use that prediction and your advantage to plan capacity of your resources, plant materials. You can do a lot of things that can create impact for the business. And like I just mentioned, water desalination can be one of the big topics, because we have a lot of free water, salty water, but it's very expensive to process that water to drink water. So how do we do that, and how can we use data to improve that process? So a lot of things going that, and to give an example, Curaçao is one of the islands producing 34% of the energy from solar. So that's a huge number if you compare with the islands in the region. So there's a great capacity, great possibility to do research there. And they are already doing some steps in the transitioning, but we need to help them and improve and create a roadmap also for the coming 10 years.
Yes.
So I think that this lab will bring a lot of value, not only for the island, but also for the people on the island. And then to finalize, just to give a short illustration, what are the things that we will bring as impact. I will not go to all the bullets one by one, but for me, what stands is that we want to make sure that we can bring talent to the region, and make sure that together with JADS, we can focus also on professional education, make sure we can create pool of talents that are working on different areas, and also share knowledge across Netherlands, not only the Dutch and European.
Great objectives. Thank you for the overview, Rigo. Maybe Dan, again, a similar question to you. How is JADS going to contribute here, and how can Rigo leverage the elements that we have been developing here over the past 5 years?
I think, this is a massively exciting project. It's a bit in a more earlier stage than the KPN project. So there's a lot to be done still. But I think one of the opportunities that we have here is to try and spread the knowledge developed here and bring it to the overseas areas. But another thing I'd like to mention here, and we discussed this, Rigo, is of course the SMEs. So here in the region, we try to help SMEs through our SME data lab, where we have students working with local companies to try and improve their data maturity. And I think one of the things we would really love to do in the sidelines of this lab, of course, is to also bring that concept overseas to the islands, to try and see if we can also help not just the utility companies, but also the smaller companies, to make a small step towards a larger data maturity. And again, this all ties in, to responsible artificial intelligence.
Yes. Yeah.
So, increasing the data literacy and data maturity.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense indeed. And you mentioned also the professional education part. So this is an element JADS is strongly developing over the years, and so we are open to this collaboration. But maybe as a short intermezzo. So we were discussing in length the way that the Netherlands then should support the development of the islands. But we have also an opportunity to listen to one of the talents that came from the islands to the Netherlands. So this is the point in time, Noël, where I would like to invite you to the table, ladies and gentlemen. Noël, Cecilia was born in the Caribbean.
No, I was not. I
Oh,
was born in
right.
Amsterdam.
Well, that's also part of the Dutch Caribbean, I should say. But you are well rooted, or your family comes from.
My dad is from Bonaire.
Yeah. Oh, well, that is a great relief. Then we have invited you for the right purpose. But could we hear from you a little, together with also what Rigo's stake is there? How are we doing in terms of data science knowledge development and artificial intelligence knowledge development in the Caribbean area?
Well, like Rigo already said in his presentation, I think there is a lot of cool initiatives going on. So there is definitely an increased interest in, applying this technique in the Caribbean. What I think is a very interesting perspective because, like you mentioned, Rigo, is that they're kind of like still in this, maybe I wouldn't say exploration, but more like setting the basis to apply this technology phase. I think in connection with this human-centered AI, topic that we're talking about today, I think that's really interesting because, what you see a lot, happening here, that the developments of AI are going really fast, and then people tend to forget about the possible, ethical consequences of the technology. I think if you're still, now we are aware that there are possible negative consequences. I think in the Caribbean, we can, start implementing this technology from a human-centered perspective from the beginning on, and you can, start creating a solid basis or a solid ethical basis.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us a few examples, Noël, of tangible developments?
In the Caribbean?
Yes.
Well, I think, like Rigo said, mostly in this utilities area, it's an interesting area because I think one of the main limitations of the Caribbean market is that it's a rather small market. And that's why these, utility companies are, for example, interesting because everyone. Yeah,
that's from the perspective of the subject as in content. Mm-hmm. So, but in terms of education, for instance, are there educational programs within the Caribbean on these topics, or should we develop them?
Well, I know that, for example, in Bonaire, that's where my family is from. It's mostly on vocational training level. So it's mostly hardcore IT studies. I know that in Curacao there is more an interest in this data science related stuff. Mm-hmm. So I guess it differs across the different islands. In Bonaire, for example, you don't really have HBO or University of Applied Sciences or universities. In Curacao you do. So I guess that differs a lot across the islands, but I think there is, for example, in Curacao, they had a data week. So there is interest and there is people that want to, start these developments. And I think JADS could really, take an opportunity here and start, creating educational programs in Curacao as well.
And if you look at the residents in the islands or on the islands, we speak about this digital transformation often here. And we all have our smartphones and things like that. And then we believe that is going to steer part of our daily lives that we can no longer do without. Could you give us an impression of the status with respect to these developments also at the islands?
Well, I know, for example,
is it comparable with the Netherlands?
I do think it's comparable. It's just in a different stage, I guess. I do know, for example, my uncle, he works at the hospital. He's going to these conferences about healthcare and AI. So they are there is interest, but I think that and it's more, I think you could call it like more in an experimental phase. Like, okay, so what are the possibilities? What kind of data do we have? How could we like start using that data? But I think, well, if you would like bring a lab such as the Lustre lab to the islands, that could really accelerate these kind of developments that are, yeah, already there, but you like, obviously you need knowledge. And I think what might also play a role, that I see that a lot, for example, if I look at my cousins or like the young people growing up in the Caribbean, they move to the Netherlands to do their studies. They might go study data science. Like I know people from the Caribbean that study data science, but then they stay in the Netherlands because there's not really much
an incentive to go back.
Back because there's not that many opportunities in terms of career. Like obviously there are opportunities, but it is limited. So many of the talents, they tend to have this tendency to, well, go to either the US or to the Netherlands to develop themselves, and they might come back on a later age. But especially people my age that studied at university, they usually stay in the Netherlands for, well, at least 10 years or so.
Yes, yeah, we know that. That's what we also like in the Netherlands. Because we call that a payback. Maybe Rigo, so these two sustainable development objectives, number 6 and 7, on the water, desalination more specifically, and the energy to use the sun, not only to bathe, but also to let's say, have energy. And these are, of course, two elements that are very important in relation to data science and artificial intelligence. They're often mentioned also in the rest of the world as the breakthrough fields in conjunction with the recovery, but also the entire discussion on sustainability. What is the situation at the Caribbean? Is it at the national level that desalination and energy provisioning is governed, or is this in the private domain?
At this moment in the Caribbean, most of the utility companies are semi-governmental institutions, and the rules and the strategy is formed from the government. And there is now, for example, in Curacao, energy strategy created by the government, and they are working towards energy. And you have in the Caribbean also some certain organizations focusing on supporting the islands with renewables and with energy solutions or water-related solutions. But I think this not really structured in the way from a long-term development in terms of talent development and bringing knowledge. I see the initiative more from different channels coming to the island. But I see, like Luel say, is we have on the island itself no educations that focus on data science related topics that can support, because I think you need talent to be able to execute strategy.
Yes.
And on the short notice, you don't have the talents on the island. And like Noel say, if you have talents that are coming from the island that have data science capacity of background, they're not going back. So for me, the Illustre Lab, together with JADS, we are working also with the Ministry of Economical Affairs from Curacao, but also with the University of Curacao.
Yes.
We have the intention to create curriculums, minors and masters for data science. So that's an approach we take together with JADS to bring that knowledge there. And also we have the approach to create professional education in this lab.
Yes.
So this is a short, you have midterm and long term. So I think building the curriculums is a long-term development, because you can create talents now for the coming 5 years. And then after 5 years, you have new talents coming. But we need talents now already. Yeah. Because we need to start doing the baby steps to start. So
maybe we go back to Noel then to wind up this discussion a little bit about what would be your desire in terms of helping out the Caribbean in terms of educating young people. So what is really the position that we should take from the Netherlands, but also from JADS, for instance?
Well, I think you should maybe enthuse people for the topic and show what kind of value it can create.
And how are we going to do that?
Well, by showing them how you can do cool stuff with data. And right, like I think that we tend to think that data science is about technology, but it's mostly about the cool use cases and the
Yes.
impact that it can make.
It certainly is.
I know, for example, what I would think would be a really cool use case in Bonaire, for example. I don't know, Fruit Punch from Eindhoven. They had like a use case with coral reefs and like some kind of, I don't know, it was something with computer vision and checking the health of coral reefs. I think a project like if you would host such a project on Bonaire and you would say like, okay, we are looking for people that, well, are interested in data science, you want to help your island and you want to help, the nature, you want to help track the health of the coral reef, which is very important for Bonaire, also for tourism. I think you would induce a lot of local students to do that, because everyone in Bonaire knows nature is our most important asset and we need to keep that healthy.
Yeah.
So if I can use my technology skills or if I can use my technology interest to do so, then I think you would
That's a great thing. Maybe we should start to look at the opportunity to have a hackathon organized on a Caribbean specific topic.
I would sign up.
All right. Then let's promise ourselves that we at least try together.
Sure.
Thank you very much for being with us.
You're welcome.
You, Noel, but also Gianluigi and Rigo. We are going to change our table setting again. So if I may invite you to take your positions in the ring, as we call it. And then it gives us great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome two new guests here at the table. And that is Renato Calzone and Winifred Andriessen. Renato, let's start with you, because you are our future, if I may say so. And the reason why I say so is that you are the business development manager of JADS. So you are the person that is responsible for developing concepts with the Ecal labs, for instance, but also with other stakeholders in the external field. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and so why you got interested in this type of work and why you do it for us?
Yes, well, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I'm not the only business developer, of course. I'm one of the business team.
But tonight, you are the only one.
Tonight, I'm the business developer. Well, thanks for having me. My background is aeronautical engineering. I'm an engineer from Delft. I also studied business administration, have my own company for a few years. So I got interested in setting up ecosystems. Yeah. So what makes me tick really is setting up something new, chasing big, hairy, audacious goals. Yeah, trying something new and trying to connect people and get them interested in working on big themes that are important to society and to them. Yeah. So. And when before this, I worked for TNO. I had a similar role, but then set up kinds of startup companies. And then JADS came along, and now I'm hooked up on data science.
Yeah.
Why I'm doing this? Yeah, well, it's a great environment because I always worked at the intersection of where knowledge is being created and where it's being employed. So in the industry, I have a technical background, so I set up the Smart Industry program. I have a lot of freedom to do so, and it's a great environment to work in.
What do you tell your friends when they ask you why is JADS so specific?
Well, JADS is very specific because we combine the best of two big universities, very different universities. One is more focused on humanities, legal, ethics, etc., and the other is hardcore technology. And also working at the intersection of the academics and the business community. So trying to translate
all intersection points.
And we are really at the sweet spot of this topic that we are discussing tonight, of course. Yeah, because putting the human in a work system where he is the center and where AI should be put at work to help this human instead of the other way around, where the human is part of the whole system.
Yes.
And that's really something, this is a so-called big, audacious goal to strive to make this type of systems work also in a technical setting.
Yeah, great, very inspiring. Winifred, You are in charge of a lot of data science developments at KPN. But I guess you didn't study data science back then.
No.
What happened?
Yeah, I studied business administration also in Groningen also. But after a year in consultancy, I came at KPN, and then my role was constantly in hindsight between the commerce and the technical. So
Yes,
always
yeah,
the bridging
yeah,
gap and always getting technology to the front,
Yeah.
making propositions of it, and I was also in a chief innovation program
Yes.
management. And then I was asked to become the head of the data science department. I'm thinking, well, me, I didn't study any data science, not even a data study. But it's digital driven, it's data driven innovation. And when that clicked to me, I said, okay, this is the new innovation. And that's what we're doing.
apparently They saw some skills.
Yeah, in the bridging the gap and
Yes.
connecting with the business, because I think now the data scientists, we are there in ECA, but you have to change the business. You have to have data-driven business people.
Yeah.
who
And
will-
that started at the top, I would say.
that started at the top.
Now, what happens there? Are you educating your CEOs and
Yeah, well,
the leads at different levels? And how
Yeah.
is that going along? And are you successful?
no,
Lot
we,
of questions, of
yeah,
course.
no, we just did a session with the board
All
on
right.
AI. So first, also telling them what were all the opportunities of AI, what we were already doing, but then with great opportunities also comes great responsibility. So we made that click. But
And did they like it? Was it new to them? Was it inspiring?
it was really inspiring.
Or
Yeah.
just mandatory and boring?
No, because at the beginning we took a non-telecom case because to make it easier for them to really experience the
Yes.
responsibility they took. And they took the case if you were responsible for an airline and your operation costs were getting too high because your planes departed late because of passengers who came late.
Oh, yes.
And then they said, okay, well,
Nice example.
suppose somebody will come that they can make a prediction model which passenger will be late, because then you can first maybe send them an SMS or something. Would you do that? Probably a lot of questions already from them about some ethical things, because we are really trained on privacy. We are really privacy aware, so they were already
Yes, I'm sure.
posing the right
Yes.
questions. But okay, well, it would go long because you still have targets. Okay. Well, still, suppose in the operations to make it work, if you don't want to delay, you do the luggage of people who come too late, you put them in the plane
Latest.
last in, first
Yeah,
out, so
yeah.
latest.
Yeah.
But to make it work, the people thought, okay, maybe we have to tag those suitcases of the people who are
Yeah.
predicted to come late.
Yes.
So the people who were predicted to come late got an orange label. But what happened for the people to put on the orange label? They saw, these are all, and now I'm really discriminating, but a white man of 50 plus, former consultants, a little bit arrogant.
So you know in advance who the
But then who are coming late? And suppose your
Yes.
model, you see some segments arising,
Yes.
and the people at who had to put the luggage on, so at the at the desk, the stewards already saw, but they get extra advantage. Because it looked like those people, of course, if you have your luggage last in, you're also the first on the
Yes. So it's a
on
sort
the,
of
on the
transition.
luggage belt.
Yes.
So they were thinking, they got a premium, they got a positive treatment.
Yes.
It was not. So, but then, and imagine if the press is coming and asking you questions, are you giving positive discrimination to these people instead of that you were avoiding it? That makes them think
Yes.
about the responsibility you take. I mean, the Apple case, credit card case, I think
Yeah.
the audience will know
Yeah.
that case. But imagine that a journalist is calling you with some kind of question about your operation because you use AI.
I would
They
assume-
they are already aware, but these examples help also.
Yeah. Yes. Great. Will there be a follow-up course?
Yeah, and well, we have all those also values for responsible AI, and of course, if we say transparent, because that's also it's already also in the Ikai lab. How are we going to do that? Where are we going to make it transparent?
Mhm.
Will we have it everywhere to the customer? This advice is given you by an AI. So we're really going to take a step further to work out. Okay, what do we really mean with transparent? Where do we want to explain the AI? Because now we already make take simpler models because we want to explain why we choose a certain area to roll out fiber.
If we would shift towards the question how mature KPN is in terms of digitalization in the broad sense, but also in terms of data savviness, data readiness, how would you rate your own company there? Are you a leader? Are you a fast follower? Are you
well, compared to what? Of course, AI is a key pillar in our digitalization journey, transformation journey.
But take your competitors, Vodafone, Diller.
I cannot see what they are doing. I know it's in comparison with the European telecom operators because we talk to them.
Yes, of course.
And on some areas advanced, but on some areas we have a lot of legacy systems where you have. So we also have problems with legacy systems. So everybody has other
issues.
Other issues.
But there is awareness inside the company, I would assume.
Yes, but still.
To narrow it down to your relationship with JADS and the Ikai lab, Winifred, why did you decide to engage with Ikai as a network and even with us as an organization hosting the Ikai lab? Why did you decide to do that? And what do you expect from us?
Yeah, well, I think the combination of the Tilburg and the Eindhoven, the technical and the more society, because that's what brings it together. What we're trying to do, that was really important one. And what also makes it work is also what John Ricci said, but it really is the case that we're able to last 2 years bringing the PhDs really into our company and working together with our data scientists, together with also a lot of master thesis students coming for your university. And they work together. And for our model governance, we really talk to the PhD about the explanation. What can we do over here? So we really use them to exchange ideas because everybody is still searching in this field how to do it.
But is there also a hiring element to it so that you?
So I think we have some master students already hired because that's what we mostly do. We have a lot of master students, and if they want, they can apply for a young talent program. So you have to be.
And if you look at their skills level, are you satisfied? Could we do better? Are they too far ahead of the average?
I think John Ricci can answer it better, but we hired a few, and we have a very I think we have a good recruitment process where we also hire them for a young talent program. So you not even have to be good in data scientists because
even better because you
in
are
the test we can
program.
see. And especially you have to be able to communicate and to take the lead. So we look for a sheep with 5 legs, but they were able to get in. So I think
sometimes you get a sheep with 6 legs. Is this something that we try to make an advantage of in the sense that we communicate that to our students, that we have such great companies that work together with us? And
certainly.
Could you say a few words on that?
Sure. What we try to do is also to give the companies that are working with us a stage so they can present themselves to our students.
Yes, I know.
So in different ways. So for instance, we invite companies to give guest lectures. That's one. Second is we have these intracurricular, how do you call it? Hackathons. You could call them for multiple months, which is called the Data Entrepreneurship in Action, where students jiggle with data and then try to discover the business value inside of it. Companies can also present themselves on our yearly fairs for students. So they man a booth. So the companies and students have the opportunity to talk to the companies. So these are all ways to engage with our talent pool, and we try to actively promote these events and also to invite companies to take part of it.
Excellent. And if we turn to you again, Dan, so from the data lab perspective, what are we doing there to, let's say, connect the education, so the what we teach as skills knowledge on the one hand side with the, let's say, professional desires at the other hand.
I think both of the persons across the table actually alluded to this, right? Because Renato, in his position, I think he does a lot of translation between the the really nerdy data guys and the pesky sort of social scientists asking uncomfortable questions, trying to translate that. But I think what we try to do in the curriculum and also with the projects that we do in the SME Data Labs is to try and train students to be able to understand what goes on in the business, and of course keeping in mind what they learned about ethics, about business, but also about statistics, and try to come up with something that works, that helps people. And I think it's always a compliment if our students get hired into this sort of traineeship programs. But one of the things I'm really proud about as well is that we had a couple of students working, doing this small project at local SMEs. And of course, these were, technical driven SMEs, but 2 or 3 of them actually started working at these SMEs. And I think, driving those connections and having students actually ending up at companies that we, collaborate with, I think that's the biggest compliment that we can receive, that we're actually succeeding in training these people that don't only do the data science, but also, can do the translation part.
And do we focus on the right skills, Winifred, in this respect?
Yeah, I think so. I think that Richie can maybe make a better judgment than I do because because we hired him. So we just hired. He started like the 1st of November. Vladimir, he's the PDN.
Yeah, he was on the list. We we saw his picture. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have the right skills, otherwise we would not hire.
Otherwise, yeah, that's a very straight answer. Thank you very much. Renato, so we would like to expand on this in the near future to make it bigger and pursue other opportunities. What are your views on this? How should we go about?
In connection to our education program, you mean, or in general?
In connection to the primary processes within JADS. So we deliver talented people, do cool things or cool stuff with data.
Yeah.
What should we focus on for the years to come to increase the pool of stakeholders, partners in various domains like KPN? What is needed to double this?
Okay, well, first of all, I think we should, let me start by saying that I'm trying to also set up a social digital entrepreneurship program.
Yes.
Yeah, where we try to collect all the findings from these type of collaboration, also human-centric AI, but also focusing on the sustainable development goals. And what we should do actually is create an environment for our students where they can learn from these programs that we're doing together with companies. And they see, well, these type of developments can also offer us an alternative to other jobs where they can just earn a lot of money, So an alternative for our students to learn how to apply AI and data science, to do good to how do you say it, to support these sustainable development goals.
Yes.
So that's what I envision that we should do, trying to make it trickle down also in our education programs, and then I think we will have traction.
How are we going to do that more specifically? So the 17 SDGs is steering very many developments, and there's hardly any university in the world that discards them for the right reasons. So the question for us then should be, what is the competence base that we have here? If we would mix that with the objectives of the transformation that goes with the 17 SDGs, what are then typically the elements that we should focus on? Is it on the data? So bringing these data skills into the educational program much more early, or educating the people, the young talented people, more from this perspective of the 17 SDGs, what they are up to, how they are controlled, how they are measured.
Yes, exactly. Because now we have data science and entrepreneurship in our veins, but it should also be data science for the good in our veins.
Yes.
And all those examples or use cases, as you can call them, they can form examples also for the students where they can work on. And then they get interested in the field. They know that companies are also working on it, doing a lot of research on it. So they know, hey, there's a job in that type of company that's interesting for me.
Yeah.
And then those students, this talent will flow to companies, and this will be a reinforcing effect.
Yeah, and this typical model of the Ikai labs, because that's what we're discussing a little.
Yeah.
So that means that it is a kind of a program. So there is a decomposition into work streams, and then we hire PhDs. So it's typically also with a horizon of 4 to 5 years, and then we do great and cool stuff, and we deliver the outcome to the company, and we educate the talent. Is that the best model, or should we also work on different models?
Yeah, well, you know, my personal opinion for Ikai Labs is that it's now very much focused on long-term research.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what we try to do, of course, is also make the translation that Rigo also showed on this slide towards implementable solutions. And only when we make this translation, it becomes much more tangible. Yeah. And I think that's still something we have to work on, because otherwise it will be just like the LTP call, 100 million euro program with a lot of clever people who are thinking about future solutions, but problems are today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we should be looking for these implementable solutions, which are also appealing then to our students. Yeah, because just doing research for the sake of research it's no use.
Sure.
It's my opinion. I'm a business developer. I'm not a research guy.
Yeah.
So making it happen, making it tangible. That's
Winifred, so what is at stake is the length of the programs and the type of work. So it's very scientific, long term. The students come in possibly with the objective to write the thesis. So that means if there are 17 new Ikai labs, we create 17 new booklets, and that's it.
Yeah, 17 times 5.
All right, that's a good multiplier. So
85 booklets.
But is this satisfactory to you as, let's say, the receiving client, or should again we focus on certain skill development in addition? Make it shorter, or with in between targets that are
I agree a little bit with Renato. From a company side, if they go collect the money for funding an Ikai lab, then always get, of course, the question: what are we getting back?
Yes, I know.
If I say after 5 years a booklet,
that's not enough.
Then but then we do it for the good, because we believe in
the good.
In science, and then we always sponsoring science. But I think it works better, and that's why also where we try to really, certainly for the last 2-3 years, getting these PhDs close to us to work really together, because you want to have the interchange of knowledge also on a more practical level, because we're now really wrestling with, okay, what will be the guidelines that we can do for AI to really get aligned with our values. Yeah, we can use some help on that.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. You know, 9 out of 10 PhD students, after they got their PhD, are not continuing their professional career in a university or institute that is close in terms of the way of working to a university.
Yeah.
And what we learned from many of the students is that we don't give enough information on what they call professional development, career development, and things like that. All universities in the Netherlands score low on this, except for Wageningen, because who goes to Wageningen already made the decision to go that route. But all the other 13 universities are different from Wageningen. And so we struggle with that. And so we have the students who call upon us to provide much more information and also develop many more skills than we do so far, but yet we don't. So what would you say also, again, within the Ecal Network program, what would be the first steps towards this? And then you could think of indeed what you already said, to have the students working on your company floor.
Yeah, and maybe like now we're doing getting them in, attracting them, inviting them for meetings, etc. But then I would really say, okay, but really embed in a team.
Yes.
So that that one team will be the host team,
yes,
one of the PhDs, and then at least be there for most of the teams have once a week a team meeting.
Yes.
Participate, hear the problems of all the data science in the field, give your opinion, sit for a day there, and maybe work on some small project for the company, and then 4 days you do your research or whatever. I mean, you can discuss that, but really make it more, and they have a good impression of what our problems are, because I like to say that we are always also strategic, but sometimes it's also on the short term that you have to solve things.
Of course.
What I would like to add is that we need this translation level, so practical researchers. So at JADS we have this professional doctorate in engineering data science, which are able to come to translate this longer term research into implementable solutions. That's what we also need in this type of programs.
But do we educate our young talent in terms of life cycles and innovation models, and how is a funnel fueled? And how do you get from one stage to the other, the stage gating part, for instance? I don't see that.
I don't know.
We learn it. This is administration.
It's part of the curriculum, but then, getting taught that and experiencing it, it's a different thing, right? Being in a business environment, it's entirely different.
What is the biggest difference, Dan?
I'm not in a business environment, so it's hard for me to, explain, but I suppose, being there and actually seeing how business operates, it's different.
From the inside.
It's different.
Working together, convincing people, getting people along, a lot of different people. Maybe
what I've seen from the SME Data Lab, where we do really small scale, short-term projects. What students appreciate is that they can actually see, what comes out of their research or their small study, and they're motivated by actually helping an entrepreneur, making more effective decisions. So, seeing that what they do has an impact on a business or an organization, I think that's really valuable to them.
Yeah, and it is interesting because let's say a young employee that is just leaving university and that you hire, or let's say other companies do the same thing. I hardly know of any company that tells the person to select a nice topic, work on it for 4 years, and then tell the company what comes out. So what is normally done is that there is a decomposition into intermediate steps. So there is a roadmap, a long-term objective, and every now and then you
it's like agile, so it's like a different.
If you would like to make it professional, you call it agile. That's what. But we don't do that too much, I would say.
Yeah, Emil, this is interesting, right? Because with PhD programs,
yes,
I think we kind of need to develop that in a different direction, maybe as well. But this is pioneering, I suppose, because you can also, have a PhD program where there are deliverables every year.
Yeah,
I know it's different.
But from my perspective, it's really interesting because I do see the students. I see many students who on this also would like to pursue a PhD because they would not, let's say, they like to have this doctorate and the title that goes with it, and that makes sense because it gives you more opportunities later. But on the other hand, we see the companies, also organizations at the public level reach that point. And then we, as the intermediates providing the education, we lag behind. So in terms of gains, there is a disconnect.
Yeah. Maybe we should think of an industrial PhD program.
I know of companies who have that.
Yeah.
It's a type of Ikai lab, but within the company itself.
Okay.
And starting with the outside in, so
yes,
looking at use cases first and working them.
That is an important part. So don't dream up a solution without knowing what the insights are that call for a solution. Yeah, great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, given time, we are close to 9 o'clock. We are at the point where we would like to thank the audience for being with us. I also would like the table guests and also the guests that are still with us, but sitting in the outer ring. So it was really inspiring to hear your opinions on this very great topic. So the human-centric AI part that is going to steer a lot of activities in the near future, the Ikai approach to it, and some ideas about the future, a hackathon in the Caribbean and an industrial PhD. So there is work to do tomorrow. So thank you for your attention today, and we will see you back, I hope, on the 2nd of December with a very, very special edition of the expert talks on the first 5 years of JADS. So see you then, and have a nice evening.